Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. First of all, wish you all a very happy new year. And this new year, I bring you a new video of a brand new tutorial on my Patreon, which I have recently relaunched. This is a peony painted with watercolors, and I'll show you how I painted this beautiful and complex flower. This is a 5-hour long tutorial in real time on Patreon. I'm using an arch hot pressed watercolor paper of 140 pounds, so I have stretched my paper to the board. This tutorial, as always, will come with a detailed line drawing for you to trace from. So I'll start painting the center of the flower, as the center is very intricate and also the darkest part of the flower. So I want to paint it first and get it over with. As the anthers, which are the lightest in color, has a very dark background, I'll mask them off with a masking fluid. This way I can easily paint all the dark colors and not worry about working around them. For applying masking fluid, I'll be using a ruling pen, as this will really give me very thin lines. You can use a small brush as well. If you're not familiar with this tool, then just adjust the screw to according to the thickness you want and then dip it into your masking fluid. I'm using a Schminky masking fluid here. Then keep it inclined and let gravity help you in achieving very thin, consistent lines. Something like this. So with the help of this tool, I'll apply this masking fluid to all the yellow parts. So in the end, it will look like this. So while the masking fluid is drying, let's mix up some colors. Now for the anthers, I'll be mixing lemon yellow and quinacridone gold, making a very pale, very watery mix. This will be our lightest tone. Now for the shadow tone on the anthers, I'll take quinacridone gold, mix it with phthalocyanine blue and Helios purple. Now I'm using the same pigments that I'll be using on the flower as well. So this will give me a brown tone. Whenever you mix any three primary colors, you get brown colors or neutral colors. Now let's mix up the color for the petals. Now I'm going to be using Helios purple as my main petal color. This is a cool pink color. And for the shadows on the petals, I'll mix some phthalo blue to Helios purple to create a mauve kind of color. This color will go into all the shadow areas of the petals, and I'll keep on varying this mix by changing the proportions of both these colors according to the tones I see in the reference picture. Next, I will also keep some rose madder lake at the side and apply it wherever I see warm pink tones. Now for all the outer petals, I can see some grey tones. For that, I'll use neutral tint, mix it with some phthalo blue to get a bluish grey color. I'll also mix some cobalt blue to it. And now for the very dark center color, I'm going to mix all the three primaries. In our case, it's Helios purple, phthalo blue and quinacridone gold. in buttery consistency to get a rich dark magenta kind of color. And to make it more dark, I'll use a little bit of neutral tint, mix it with it. And for the very dark blackish tone, I'll add more neutral tint. So our color mixes are ready. So let's begin. So I start by painting the center. Now this is the lightest color I see in the center. So this is just neat Helios purple. The masking fluid is completely dry by now. But I find that a little bit too light for the center. So I'm just going to add some quinacridone gold and phthalo blue to Helios purple. Basically the same three primaries again, but make it a little bit lighter than our darkest shadow tone. And I'll go over this Helios purple that we have applied. And you'll see that once we do the very dark tones around it, this will look much lighter. So now I will take our darkest shadow tone that we have prepared by mixing three primaries and apply it around this area. Here in the left hand side, it's a little bit lighter. So observe your reference picture very closely. Now I'll also paint the area behind the anthers so that later on I can remove the masking fluid. So for this I start with by applying Helios purple, and then I take the shadow color for all the darker parts. So this is a very complex flower, so I'm going in with dark intense colors, not too thick, still keeping it milky consistency so that I don't have to come in with more layers. By painting wet on dry, I'm instantly getting the tone that is required. If I paint it wet on wet, again I'll have to come in with more layers to make it this dark. After applying these colors, I felt that it requires more warmth and more reddish tones. So I'm taking Rose Madder Lake on its own, little bit watery, and I'm going to give a glaze of this color on the entire layer that we have applied. So this will give a nice warmth to the center. After I was satisfied with the tones on the center, I let it dry completely and I start removing the masking fluid. Of course, we'll be making it more darker when we come in the second layer with all our vein and line work. Now I apply the lightest tone that we had prepared by mixing lemon yellow and quinacridone gold on all the anthers. While painting these, take care that the brush doesn't go on the darker areas, otherwise that color will bleed on the lighter areas as it's done on mine, but it's okay, you can easily lift them off. Now I will be taking our shadow color for the anthers, which is a mix of quinacridone gold plus Helios purple plus phthalocyanine blue. And now I'll start defining the shapes of the anthers. So I'm working with size 0 brush over here. As we all know that after applying masking fluid, the shapes, they get all mixed up. So with this color now I'm going to define the shapes, create some shadows and make some sense out of those anthers. If you find that you have accidentally gone over some of the lighter areas with your darker color, then you can just take your lifting brush and try to lift that area off. Uh, of course, it will not be as light as the brightest color, but as you see that some of the anthers are in the shadow, so we can do away with this. So I continue working with the shadow color on the rest of the anthers. Let each and every layer dry completely. And now after applying the shadow color, I just find that the lightest color is looking too light. So I go over with the lightest tone on all the anthers again. And now what I'll do is I'll take our darkest color, the background color, and define the anthers more. I'll work in between those anthers, make them a little bit more separate, give them more definition. So use your tiniest brush for this work. It's a tedious job, but it's not very difficult. And at this stage I'm also pushing some of the anthers behind, means I am painting over some of the anthers, and in the center I'm lifting some of the anthers for their bright color to retrieve those highlights. So basically I'm doing the final adjustment stage on the center part of this flower. Spend a good amount of time on this center part of the flower, as this will really enhance all the petals surrounding it, and you will definitely see the fruits of your labor. So I let this area dry completely, and now let's start working on the petals. So first I'll work on all the pink petals surrounding the center, and then we'll go on the and work on the outermost petals. So let's start with the pink ones. So here you can see I have refreshed my palette with all the colors: Helios Purple plus Phthalo Blue for our shadow color, Rose Madder Lake on its own, and the darkest shadow tone. So now for the first wash, I like going in with wet on wet. So first I lighten the sketch, and now I am applying a clean water glaze to the petal. We'll be working petal by petal. Yes, it's it's a very complex flower. It is going to take time. So I start by applying Helios Purple first, neat Helios Purple. And for the top part, I'm applying that very light mauve. And as the painting starts to dry, I start lifting off some of the lighter veins that I can see. So with a damp brush, and by using the tip of your brush, just start lifting off the veins. In smaller petals, I directly go in with color. You don't need to put any water glaze. wherever I see a gradient of color, I again apply water glaze first and then I apply the colors. But you can directly go in with wet on dry. Keep a distance in between your petals, meaning don't work petals which are close to each other. So again here I have applied water first and then applying color and then softening it with a damp brush. And for smaller petals I've switched to a smaller brush. This is size 3. So after this petals are completely dry, I remove the pencil lines which are there in between these petals as we don't require them now. And the pink colors normally they make your pencil marks permanent, and I want this flower to look really soft after painting. So try to remove your pencil lines as much as you can. So again, this is a very light petal, so I go in with the water glaze first and then apply a very watery wash of Helios purple and mauve, and then soften wherever you see the highlight. Soften it with a damp brush. Pay attention to all the uh, shadow areas under every petal, and also the shifts of color, the shift of tones. Use two brushes, one for applying color and one for softening the color that you have applied so that it doesn't leave any watermarks. So in this way, I continue working on each and every petal. This video here on YouTube is sped up 5 times the original speed, but on Patreon this is a 5-hour long tutorial in real time. Every petal is having their own highlights and their own shadows, so this will be a really good practice if you're a complete beginner. After finishing all the pink inner petals, I start working on the outermost petals. Now for this, I'll be using a little bit of phthalo blue on its own. Now our flower is on a white background, so I will not be leaving the outermost bright white petals completely white, as they will completely vanish off. So I'll be using a little bit of blue just to create interest. And here I'm again mixing some Helios purple with halo blue, but here in this mix the Helios purple is a little bit more, and the outermost petals have very muted colors. So to this I'll be also mixing some neutral tint. So using the same pigments but in different proportions, you can create so many different colors. So this tutorial will also be a very good exercise in color mixing if you're weak at it. So now to create a very soft application, I'm applying a water glaze first. This is our first wash, so I'm trying to keep all my lightest colors very light. And then I'm applying that little bit of blue on the very edge of the petal just to create interest. You can even skip this, or you can just use very light gray as well. But this blue is really giving a very beautiful um, uh, element to this flower. The use of colors also makes a kind of a signature of your own, what colors you're using. So I feel like that. So what colors you're using in every painting becomes that particular artist's signature. So here I come to the end of our first layers. Keep all your light petals very light and your darker ones dark. Maintaining this contrast will make your flower pop up from the page. So keep on comparing your tones to the reference picture. So with this we finish the first wash on the entire flower. So I let it dry completely, and now I come in with my eraser and remove all the pencil lines. We don't require it now. And also this masking fluid that are applied for the fallen pollens on the petal of the flower. So I'm going to remove that as well. So now in the second layer, I take my darkest shadow tone and we'll start working on the veins. As you observe in the reference picture, the veins on these petals are quite dark. So with a very thin, with a fine pointed brush, I'll be drawing in lines, I'll be painting all the veins now. And as this is a very complex flower, for this particular painting, what I've done is after painting the veins on each petal, I wait for the veins to dry, as you can see here on this one. And then adjust the tonal values on that particular petal and just finish off that petal, because I don't want to come in again with the third layer. So draw very thin lines, and in where the highlight region, just go over your veins with a damp brush to just soften them up. And one more reason we are doing veins now is I want the veins to get sandwiched between the layers so that they don't look very superficial. So here you can see after the veins have dried, I come in again with rose madder lake and go over all those darker areas to make them more darker, more intense. So this way now we don't have to come again and again adjusting all the tonal range. So every painting has its own way of handling it. So there are many ways of tackling a painting. So I just found that this is a good way when you're working, especially on a very complex flower. So here you can see I'm painting the veins. Give it a few seconds to dry. While it's drying, I'm painting veins on this second petal. Okay, so now the veins on the first petal is dry, so I come in with more colors. Again, paint the veins if you feel that they are vanished, and like this you paint each and every petal now. Try to keep all your layers, all your veins very soft by going over it with a damp brush. So keep two brushes in your hand and try to compare all your colors with the darkest color that you have applied with the darkest petal. At some places, I find that I've got an hard line edge, so I come in with my lifting brush and lift off those hard lines, trying to keep everything nice and soft. I come in again and again on the darker petals. It's always better to darken your petals with multiple layers than going in with very thick colors to avoid any muddiness on your painting. So always work with transparent washes from watery to milky consistency. For this shadow, I have used more of Helios Purple with Phthalocyanine Blue and a little bit of neutral tint. So try to vary your shadow tones. Don't apply the same shadow color to all the petals. Just observe your reference picture nicely. So I've turned my board over here and I'm working on the outermost petals now. The outermost petals on this flower are very light, so keep them like that so that all your center petals and your center, it really jumps off the page. The key to a beautiful painting or a beautiful drawing is having a nice contrast. So keep your lighter highlights as light as you can see on the reference picture, but at the same time, don't shy away from darkening any of your shadows. Keep them as dark as you can see on the reference picture. If you are scared of applying dark colors, then go in multiple layers. That's a very good habit actually. Work in layers, jump around on the petals because this is a very long and very tedious project. So keep your spirits high, and whenever you feel bored, just take a break from the painting instead of spoiling the painting, because I do that a lot. So just take a break, work on some other things, and come back to this painting with fresh eyes and a fresh mood. And because it's a beautiful flower, and at some places I've also used some opera pink, and I have sandwiched it between Helios purple and rose madder lake. I love this color, it's a very vibrant pink color, so it just brightens up the whole flower. So I've only used it where the light is really hitting on this flower. So I've recently relaunched my Patreon again. I have more than 45 tutorials already published on Patreon in colored pencils and watercolors, and sometimes even a mix of both. In every tutorial, I try to bring in some new techniques, some new ideas to finish up and make your artwork look beautiful. So I hope you join me over there. I also have a free tutorial with colored pencils over there. So even if you're so you can just join me there as a free member to get access to this free tutorial. Now I'm working on the outermost petal. So after applying any veins or any colors, I'm just going over it with a damp brush to keep it very nice and soft. And for the outermost part, I am using a little bit of blue because any light color petals, they will reflect the colors from their surroundings. So since this is nestled between all the green leaves, so it is reflecting a little bit of green color. So this way I finished this video and this painting. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you do, please like it and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.